In this story, Mike is a punk who has been in jail for fighting and can't find a job after his release. With the help of his ex-girlfriend, he eventually found a temporary job cleaning air conditioners. Instead, they had been a promising badminton player, but the sudden loss of his sight turned his life upside down for a year. Day has become a cripple in his own eyes and his family is considering finding someone to take care of him. By chance, they run into Mhut, thinking he's here to interview for an assistant-type job. However, the outcome of the interview was unexpected and he received a notice to stop the interview. With a sense of dissatisfaction, Mhut barged into that place without a second thought. However, once inside, he realized that it was not the ideal job he had imagined. To make matters worse, the person he needs to take care of is not only visually challenged, but verbally abusive. Though Mhut is in dire need of money, he will never offer his services to such a person, so Mhut turned away without hesitation. Mhut has a sister, or had one. A year ago, on the day he was arrested for fighting, his sister passed away. At one time, the siblings supported each other. My sister works hard and puts all her hopes in her nail salon. However, everything came to nothing. The store closed down and my sister went into huge debt. Unable to cope with the stress of it all, my sister eventually chose to take her own life. She left behind a beloved car, but upon her death, the vehicle was taken into debt. Debtors have been looking for Mhut to redeem the vehicle as soon as possible. However, Mhut has been avoiding this debtor. Now the situation became inevitable, and he had to agree to let the other guy sell that car. For a day, he didn't want to see himself transformed from a vibrant teenager to one with cloudy emotions, even get him to accept that he is depressed. However, the enormity of the change was too much for him to bear. He didn't want to become the cripple everyone said he was, and stubbornly didn't want to accept anyone's sympathy. So he started to be toxic, not accepting all applicants and attacking everyone without discrimination. He speculates about others with the utmost malice, just to protect himself. Mhut didn't think that he would ever see this obnoxious guy again. He was seen in the blind association, fumbling to get into the elevator, not even knowing that his reading card had fallen out. Mhut also learned about his experience from staff members. He watched as he fumbled around trying to read a book, but bumped off the CD and couldn't even pick up what he dropped. He also doesn't want help from those around him, and is really like a stubborn little prince. On the way back, Day and Night get into an argument about Mom not being able to stay at home long term because of her job. She wants to change Day's guardianship to Night for Day's safety. Day, however, feels that Night is just trying to make a personal agenda, taking everything for himself while he's out of sight. In a feat of rage, Night blurts out his frustrations with Day. Day, who already didn't want anyone else to take care of him because he couldn't see, got his temper up. He got out of the car stubbornly, but the cars on the road didn't stop for him. Night also reacted and tried to go after him, but the seatbelt got stuck and there was a bit of a delay. Day was too scared to move in the traffic when a man pulled him to the side of the road. It was the air conditioner cleaner from that day. Mhut was sent Day home. The first time he came into the house, Day had him read to himself from a random book. Mhut took a copy of The Little Prince and didn't expect Day to catch him below. After this, Day accepts Mhut as the one who takes care of him. Mhut, however, refuses and Night tells him to go back and think about it. Walking out the door, Mhut thought of his sister and the car and eventually went back. He pulls out his found reading card and tells Day to go over and get it himself. He accepted the job and promised to start the next day. Night was relieved by this. Mhut becomes Day's escort, but only to get him food and make sure he's safe. He didn't even have to cook. Mhut began his career as an escort, but Day's mom isn't happy with him and is worried that he won't be able to take care of Day. She gave a detailed account of all the things to look out for. She tells Mhut he just needs to make sure Day is safe. No cleaning, no cooking. All he had to do was heat up his own prepared dish for Day, because Day only eats mom's cooking. And since the last time he went out of his room and fell on his leg, he refuses to come out. Mom is still unsure, but Night thinks Mhut is not very friendly despite his appearance. Actually, he's supposed to be a kid who can't take care of good people. Because of her job, Mom had to do the same for a while, and went out with worry in her heart. Mhut takes his breakfast to his room and is still asleep. Mhut saw his room in disarray, and after a quick turnaround he went along and organized it. I didn't expect Day to wake up and realize someone had been in his room. Nothing he put there is in its original position. Hearing him scream, Mhut rushed into the room, only to realize that he couldn't find his cell phone charger. He warned him that he was not allowed to enter his room in the future and threw the man out. Mhut feels he did nothing wrong. He was just trying to help and was called nosy. But then again, touching random people's stuff is really annoying, not to mention moving the blind man's things. But even the things in my room would be uncomfortable if they were moved. But Mhut doesn't realize it. On this day, Aeon, one of the counselors from the Society for the Blind, comes to see Day. He comes across Mhut, who has forgotten his keys, and kindly tells him that there is a spare key under the flower pot. Knowing who he is, Mhut thought Day wouldn't see him, Unexpectedly, Day happily invites Aeon into the room, doesn't even give Mike a chance to ask what he wants to drink. Mike has noticed that Day has changed a lot, and he now voluntarily shares with himself about his caregiver. This change, which Aeon didn't even notice, made Aeon feel like everything was going in the right direction. It's just that Day still needs to give himself more time. He told Day not to rush into taking on everything, and that it's okay to rely on others appropriately. There really is no such thing as empathy in this world. All that I understand and I get is just all words of comfort. It's like a huge change of heart on Day. Like how Mike kept getting colored eyes and couldn't get a job because he went in for fighting. No one can really relate to their feelings. Day has never been able to come to terms with this huge fall from grace, so he closes himself off. Mike was going through a lot of trouble to get him out of his room, but none of it was working. That is, until Day drops his eye drops and he can't find them no matter what. So he has to call for Mike when he does. There was only a slight reprieve between the two. The 10 seconds after you put the eye drops in are the time of day when Day can't see the most clearly. He likes to look at the goldfish in the tank, but the tank hasn't been cleaned and the water hasn't been changed in a long time. So after Day refuses to come out of the room yet again, Mike excuses that the goldfish is dying. He finally snubbed Day out of the room. Day sits off to the side while Mike washes the fish tank. He smells the jasmine but still talks tough and says he doesn't want to see it. Without further ado, Mike goes and picks one for him, and Day gladly takes the flower. When he was asked how far he could see, Day also stopped feeling offended but told Mike, about a finger's distance away you can't see a little better. He didn't realize that Mike was comparing a finger's distance, trying to make himself look at him. Afterwards, he dragged Day back into the kitchen for dinner and a movie together. This day was the longest he had ever stayed out of his room. It was only broken by the sudden arrival of a few people. They didn't want them to know she couldn't see and was in a hurry to get back to her room. In his haste, he spilled the popcorn and drinks he had prepared and fell even further himself. The sun is not a fish. No one in this world can truly empathize. They doesn't want to step out into the world again, but Mike is worried that he's just like his sister. So when he locked the door to his room and didn't say a word inside, he slammed it. He was finally relieved when he saw Day, who was just taking a dip, but they fired him. Day is really into The Little Prince and has been listening to the audiobook. He knows he should try to accept, try to go out, try to live a new life, but he could never take that step. Like a snail that touches a little angular object and shrinks back into its shell. After Mike is fired, Porgy goes to Day's house with the house shoes Mike gave Day. It was a pair of orange whale slippers. The day Mike and Day first met, Day's feet were wrapped. He later learned that it was a bump in the house, and Day was still not even in the room because of it. Mike then prepared a pair of home slippers for him that would protect his feet. He also picked out Day's favorite style of goldfish. Day immediately realizes that he's still looking out for himself and asks Porgy to take himself to Mike. He didn't expect Porgy to take Day to the food market, and he didn't expect even more. Porgy says Mike is blindfolded and has been for a day and a night, making everyone think he is crazy. He was trying to understand Day, and really when he couldn't see, he realized how painful the whole not seeing thing was. Even in places he knows well, he can't be knocked down by sudden people or objects. He apologized to Day, not just for saying bad things to him, even more so because he doesn't understand it. Yet he has to say he does. He actually forgave him from the time he woke up at 7 a.m. because he had begun to get used to it and to look forward to Mike. So he forgives Mike by simply asking him to take himself home. On the way back, Mike sees how happy Day has been and goes to buy a goldfish. He was raised with the goldfish that he had before and named him Big Mike. With Mike, Day is not alone. Like a tame fox, not anymore. Mike managed to stay with Day. He began training Day to recognize things on his own. The first step is to memorize where everything is placed, starting with small things like chargers and headphones, then down to the clothes. The old Day was a stinker with lots of clothes. Surprisingly, he still has two inflatable dinosaur costumes that he wore at the party. They told Mike to put it on, though he couldn't see it. He could imagine the hilarious look laughing his ass off. Mike, of course, wasn't just going to let himself be laughed at, and dragged him to change into the mannequin suit as well. More than that, he let him play with himself in the yard for a while. They hadn't been this tired in a long time, and asked Mike to take a picture of himself. Since Mike came to the house, he has really changed and opened up a lot. Mom was surprised for a long time when she saw that he could hold things by himself. Only, Day has been reluctant to speak his mind to his family since the beginning. Those are words he'd rather tell Mike. Night went to Day for a suspension, except the school requires physical presence to sign the consent form. But Day doesn't want to go, and he doesn't want to take a break from school, but just drop out, because he doesn't know when his eyes will get better, and it may still be a long way off. He also preferred not to have his friends see him as he was now. He didn't want to be the object of pity. I didn't expect Meg to see him fully dressed the next day. in order to stop fighting with his family. Day plans to go to school to get a withdrawal. He asked Mike to fix his hair. After getting organized, the two went to school together. They explained to the principal the reason for his visit and told him their original reason as well. However, the principal only agreed to suspend him from school. He told Day not to be so pessimistic all the time, that everyone has a tragedy in them in one way or another, but there's still hope. Maybe the miracle is tomorrow. They eventually agreed to do the suspension as well. Out of the principal's office, Mike asks Day to show himself around the campus. He wanted to borrow a book and had Day take himself to the library. I didn't realize that I almost ran into his former friends, but luckily they were just passing by and didn't see him. But the library didn't have the book he was looking for. Mike, after asking his permission, decides to take him to a bookstore he knows. Only instead of opting for a cab, he took him to the subway and made Day buy his own ticket. Mike tries to ask for a favor and give up his seat, but Day stops him. He just needs Mike by his side, no one else's seat. When the two arrived at the market, they didn't rush to the bookstore, but to the clothing store. Day was new to these stalls and happily bought a dress. He picked out another bright pink t-shirt from Mike that could be seen from Mars. Then they went to the bookstore. The bookstore owner said that he did have the book in the store, but needed to look for it and told them to come back another day. Mike could see that Day, while agreeing, could not hide his disappointment and planned to look around the store himself. The two, plus the store manager, look for a book in the bookstore together, and Mike finds it, but he puts the book under Day's hand, leaving Day happy to think he found it. On the way back, Mike tells Day to wait by the side of the road and get water himself. He ends up seeing Porche's fiancée hooking up with another girl and the other guy ends up making the first move. Mike was enraged and wrestled with him. After the fight, Mike remembers Day, who had left on the side of the road, and rushes back to find him. But the man was gone. It would have been nice for Day to stand on the side of the road in an attempt to avoid the people working nearby. He accidentally stepped into the middle of the road and was left without direction for a while. Once Day was taken to the side of the road again, he couldn't find the original place at all. All he could do was feel his way along the road trying to find someone to ask. He didn't hear Mike call out to himself until he fell and someone came around, so that Day could see him. He wore that pink dress and looked anxiously behind the crowd for someone. Seeing that he was okay, Mike hugged him afterward. That's when Day's ever so scared heart broke through. It was late by the time the two packed up and got home, and Mom waited anxiously. She's done backtracking and knows Mike's priors. Seeing him like that made her even more worried that he had taken Day to do something bad. She tried to get Day a new caregiver, but Day flatly refused. He doesn't care how Mike used to be. All he knew was that Mike was the only one who didn't sympathize with himself, who didn't think of himself as a blind man. Only in the presence of Mike does Day feel like an ordinary person. So he doesn't think Mike's past has anything to do with taking care of himself either. Mike is a regular guy like himself. Mike takes him to his room with the intention of going back, and Day asks him to read a passage from the book he bought. Mike finished reading and then read the words on the last page.
ฝันดีนะ
A common phrase, but one that baffles Day. It had been a long time since anyone had said that to him, and it turned out to be words from a book. After confirming that Mike had left, Day couldn't wait to find the words in the book and was slightly disappointed. Turns out Mike isn't going anywhere at all, and Day nervously puts the book down. I didn't realize that Mike had said good night to him again. This good night was said by Mike today. The coffee Mike brews is really a mouthful. It's a hard day for the victim to go from night to day. But although he couldn't make coffee, he remembered that Day likes jasmine and would pick it for him. To assure freshness, he soaks the flowers in water. It was the gentlest thing he could do. Day obviously eats it up. Mike takes him to see his sister's car, and Day learns the reason why he has this job. He allowed Mike to drive around and wash the car on the way. As long as Mike is around, Day isn't afraid to go out at all. He was still able to go to the restaurant with him, albeit with a packed meal back. Mike introduces Porche to Day. He remembers Porche, or to be precise, he should remember the voice. He couldn't get an initial idea of the person he's meeting for the first time by the sound of his voice, and Mike's voice had an air of mystery about it for him. He has a great understanding of Mike. Day mistakes Porche for Mike's girlfriend. Porche explains that it's just an ex-girlfriend. She could tell Day was interested in Mike by the way he relaxed momentarily. Day drinks water to cover up, and is only rescued when Mike returns with a packed meal. The two go out and meet Day's friend G. She hadn't expected to run into Day, who had been out of touch for a long time, and she hadn't expected Day to ignore her and leave. Day struggled for a long time before he turned his head and told her about being invisible. She realizes he's been invisible for almost a year. She also gets to know Mike and can't see the difference Day makes to him. Day expressed his helplessness at being teased twice in one day. She tells him the society is organizing things and asks if he needs it and can't get it back for him. Day immediately said he would check it out for himself. Back at their original club, Day remembers the old training days. She takes over the job of guiding Day from Mike. She subtly asks Day if he's seen Mike and tells him that Mike is a handsome man. The two were talking about the coach going back home. She meets a schoolgirl. When he tries to get Day to attend a farewell party, she recognized Day and wanted to take a picture with him. Mike leaves it up to Day to decide. Day quickly went from flinching and meeting a stranger to taking pictures of the same. Mike takes a picture of them when he voices directions for Day, and G has something to leave. Mike then leads Day into the club room. Day talks about things he wouldn't talk about before, about his old training, his old races. He also proudly explains to Mike how awesome this trophy is, but in the end, he just took the picture and didn't take the trophy away. It's just that Day, in this way, is already a lot better than what it was before it was closed. Mike is always there when Day needs him the most. Day agreed to go to the coach's farewell party, but Mike suddenly gets a call from Porche asking for his help. Day doesn't push him and asks G to pick himself up for the felicitation, while Mike goes to pick up Porche. Because her boyfriend cheated on her, she decided to move out of their house. She was worried that Mike would strike when he met the scummy two and wasn't going to let him help. She wanted to move while the person wasn't home, but she didn't expect to be run into by a scumbag anyway. She could only get Mike to help. It's true that you have to use force to clean up a scummy guy. Or did you hit him lightly last time? Fearing that Porche would continue to be harassed by him, Mike picked her up. She stayed in her original sister's room, but he was told another bad news. Porche is pregnant. She plans to have the baby and raise it on her own. On the other side, Day arrives at the bar with G, and she tells everyone about Day ahead of time. People didn't act surprised, just a lot of demeanor or talking. They're all inevitably wary of upsetting Day. Day does his best to mitigate any embarrassment, so as not to embarrass anyone, but his inner fear of unfamiliar surroundings and strangers hadn't actually diminished at all. He went into the restroom and couldn't get his bearings, eyeing a confrontation with the people inside. Mike swoops in and solves the problem at hand, and Day relaxes when his voice is heard. It was only when he was back at the table again, with Mike by his side, that he felt like he had come to life. He also provoked Mike to go on stage and sing.
ร้องให้ฟังหน่อยดิพี่สื่อหรอ
Mike sings songs they listened to while driving. At that time, Mike said he didn't like it, but sang it in front of everyone at that point. Even G could tell he was singing today. Day has heard many people say that Mike is handsome and he wants to see Mike's face. After the party, the group took pictures and called up Mike. He stood next to Day and silently wrapped his arms around Day's waist. On reaching home, Mike is worried about a drunk Day, so he stays at home. They flipped the picture taken from his cell phone, but even if he put it to the max and put his face to the screen, he couldn't see his face. So while Mike was asleep, he took special eye drops, thinking himself careful. He patted over next to Mike and got a closer look at his face. It is indeed as handsome as they say, but he doesn't realize that Mike is just pretending to be asleep and Day's every move is all in his eyes. Day and Mike have made substantial progress in their relationship. After last night's tryst, Day is willing to call Mike brother, though again, it was only after his teasing that he was willing to talk. What gives Day a good deal on the novel? Day is a lot like the characters in the novel, but they are all gradually healing themselves, gradually willing to open the door and walk out. Day has gone from only wanting to eat mom's cooking to now will eat Mike's. He was also willing to take matters into his own hands, picked up his cell phone again, and started documenting his life. He played around with social apps again and started socializing again. He also once again Saturday in the audience to cheer for G when she competed. Although he can't see it, but Mike, more than can be seen, can predict more accurately what G will do next. G didn't see Day until after the game. While she was glad he had come, she flirted with him again. Who knew that Day's former partner, August, would suddenly appear and question where he'd been and why he disappeared. Mike stopped the man who appeared out of nowhere. Day is alarmed at August's appearance and tells Mike to hurry home. When Day and he first started doubles, it was anyone's game, so the games are a mess and the training goes its own way. It wasn't until one of Day's all-night practices that August agreed with him. The pair's doubles only began to improve and started winning matches. Ended up getting picked for the national team. But who knew Day would have such a change of heart? He hid it from everyone, including August. He wanted to get the donation, change back to his old self, and return to them afterward. This run-in was not expected by anyone, but it also made Day recognize the fact that they couldn't go back. Mike doesn't comfort people. He only makes good food for Day. He makes the fried rice he used to make for his sister. And Day realizes he had a sister. Realizes she passed away. A lot of it really isn't about not appreciating it when you have it. Rather, it's the moment you lose it that you realize you won't have it again. That's why it's so important to appreciate the moment and do what you want to do. Day musters up the courage to go back to August, even though he probably already knew about himself. Day wanted to tell him all about it in person. Day only eats at home and he doesn't eat with anyone else except Mike. So when August asks him out, he subconsciously declines. He didn't want to look sloppy in front of August, but Mike made the appointment for him anyway. To keep Day from losing face in front of August, Mike trains him to eat. Since he was used to eating at home, Mike took him out to a restaurant again. Mike has gone through a careful dressing, and Porche can't see that something is wrong with him. Aside from taking him out, Mike has actually learned it a lot. He told Day how to eat off his plate and how to tell directions. When the appointment was made, Mike took him to the restaurant and Day let him go back. But Mike went out and didn't leave. He was worried about Day and tried to wait for August to show up, but he never did. He couldn't bear to keep Day waiting. Mike then took him to the Bangkok Memorial Bridge and showed him the sights and night view. He also took him to the flower market. Day loves sunflowers because they are always bright toward the sun and keep a love for everything. But he wasn't willing to let its beauty be buried because he couldn't see it. So, he refused Mike's offer to buy one for himself. He liked the sunflowers, but didn't buy them. It's like he doesn't want to bury August because of himself. He told August to find a new doubles partner. August refuses and decides to just singles from now on. Day was definitely happy, but this time he didn't show up for his appointment. This, in turn, makes Day think that August is pressing himself to be polite. He was not only just disappointed, but more than that, he regretted it. He regrets not confiding in August when he could see it. Mike was going to take a sunflower to cheer him up, but the moment he took it out, he saw August behind Day. All he could do was hide the flowers behind his back. August heard everything but just shook his head and left, like the sunflower that was left in the chair, not in the hands of the person he was supposed to be in. No identity. Standing silently behind guard, Mike really nailed the sunflower language. August didn't show up for his appointment, but he came to Day's house the next day. He explains to Day that he didn't show up for his appointment because he fell on his hand and went to the hospital. But Mike knew it was just an excuse he made. He obviously went to the restaurant, but Day didn't know, and Mike saw how happy he was and didn't tell Day the truth despite his own discomfort. Mike can't ignore his emotions as long as Day is happy. Mr. Aon invites Day to go for a run, and Day worries that he won't be able to run. August just said he could be his pacer and take him on a run. Day was looking forward to going for a run and started getting his shoes ready, but the ones he loved so much were worn out. Mike was going to buy him a new pair, but the appointment would have to be postponed. Day doesn't know if he can let go of the shoes or the date, and insists on trying to get them fixed. Mike saw how insistent he was, so he took the shoes home and prepared them for repair. Porche tells Mike to hurry up if he has an idea, or else he will only end up in the status of delivering blessings in his turn. Mike wants to, but he feels that Day doesn't like him and confessing now will only add to his troubles. So he just fixed the shoes and put new laces on them, prepared Day for everything, and he sends him to August. He watched as Day and August simultaneously pulled out their headgear to make a leash. He watched as the two of them went from not fitting in at all to getting their feet wet. Watch as August buys new shoes for Day, and the original pair goes back in the shoe closet. Mike all but watches from behind Day. Day suspects it's wishful thinking. He also reassured him that no one would get up that early just to run with a friend. In fact, August is not the only one who wakes up early. Mike also wakes up early. Mike is also physically challenged due to his age, but he still insists on running behind them every day. Day didn't notice and Mike didn't say anything. He just wanted to pay in silence. They tried to ask August out to dinner, but he had to train and declined. Rejected. Day was unhappy all day. When I got home in the evening, my mom made delicious dishes to celebrate Day's birthday early. Since it was Day's birthday in a couple of days, his mom had worked that day and couldn't be with him. When Mike found out, he asked him to have dinner with him that night. Mike gets Day styled and takes Day to the ready restaurant. The sudden sound of a salute startles Day as he finds it strange. Mike explains to him that it's everyone in the badminton club celebrating his birthday, and it was all prepared by August without Day's knowledge. As a surprise for him, August took Day from Mike, and it was all he could do to let go. Mike watched him having so much fun among his friends and silently withdrew. August takes him a piece of cake and also tells Mike that he can't go back and will take Day home himself. Mike annoyingly asks a passerby for a cigarette, but presses it out after only one drag. He went to the flower market alone, bought one of Day's favorite sunflowers, went to the bridge again alone. Day asks about Mike and she says she saw him smoking outside. Day is weird. He obviously quit and doesn't understand why he started smoking again. He let G take himself to the people, but when he went out, Mike was no longer outside, and he had to retrace his steps back to the restaurant. Day is a little tired at this point. He still brought up the energy to say he was happy in the face of August's questioning. August is giving Day a birthday present. On taking him outside, I didn't realize I had to warn Day about the person across the street and have him run into someone. The other guy spilled his drink all over Day. August started blaming each other. Just moments later, everyone is either wiping the wine off of Day or apologizing to him. He called G to get himself out of the place, but then he came out and wanted to be left alone and drove G away too. He was hoping at this point that the person who came was Mike, but it was August who showed up. He gave Day his headband and wanted to use it with Day. It was supposed to be just friends and he had to kiss Day. Finish Day counter-kissing him and then refusing to do so. He just sympathizes with Day and wants to make a good memory for Day. Mike isn't the only one who wants to beat him up, but Day stopped Mike. Mike then takes Day to a rooftop. He used to be a mouthy rich young man, and a lot of people didn't like him, but now everyone is treating him kindly, for no other reason than people just pitied him. It also gave him the illusion that everyone was sympathizing with him, but he forgets that Mike has treated him like a commoner from the beginning. Throughout all that time together, he was doing his best to set Day straight about his wrong ideas. He's never had any sympathy for Day, whether it's looking the other way at first or taking care of it later. He's learning a lot about caregivers all just so that Day doesn't continue to be so closed off to himself. The ensuing understanding of Day has made him even more attracted to the stubborn yet lovable man, and Day accepted his dependence on Mike for so long. He also long ago fallen for his attentiveness and patience with himself, and the way he got along differently than the others. It's just that he's temporarily blinded by his former feelings. Day really is in love and doesn't know it. Day is too surprised by Mike's actions to speak, but he didn't know what to do. Say he doesn't like Mike, but then again, he can only feel safe around Mike to not be afraid. Say he likes Mike, he just likes Mike. He just doesn't know it. Also, Mike doesn't know what to do next. In Porche's defense, he's a guy who just runs amok once he's in a relationship. After confessing that Day didn't give a response, he was lost. So he tells Porche about his crush on Day. Porche thought he was going to say something important. It turned out to be this thing that she'd realized long ago, but Mike himself had been stiff-arming her about not having it. But she won't let Mike confess for fear he'll screw it up. But one look at Mike's face tells me he's spoken. Only she doesn't know that Mike didn't just confess. He did something even more powerful. And of course Mike sheepishly didn't tell her. August is going to America. They guessed he probably just wanted to make a good memory before he left. They didn't want to see him again, but Mike dragged him to August's press conference. I said I came to scold him, but I couldn't even after hearing his farewell words. After the two part peacefully, Day excuses Mike to get coffee. Turning his head, he tells G about Mike's confession to himself. G thinks she'll quit Mike and find a new caregiver if it doesn't work out. How can Day agree to that? He just warns Mike sternly not to do anything out of character. Thinking he was worried, Mike decided to resign on his own accord. Unexpectedly, Day says he just doesn't like Mike but wants Mike around. Mike is confused. Mike understands. Mike is happy. He knew Day was probably confused even now, but by allowing himself to remain by his side, he allows Day to see himself, and it's not as if Day is completely devoid of feelings for himself right now. When August leaves, Day's lead will have to be replaced. Mike won't have to bear the brunt of it. Stumbling at first, Day irritates Mike by saying August leads better than he does. Mike, of course, is not happy and takes the opportunity to exchange the shoes August bought him for the ones he fixed for him. Day knows it by heart, but still keeps saying he'll fire you if you cross the line again. Mike would often read to him to listen. Having said that, he didn't rampage like Porche said he would though, but he's also doing things a lot more boldly. Day falls asleep listening to the book, and Mike can guess that he's pretending to be asleep. Just that one sentence. Look at how sweet it made our day. I don't believe you when you say you don't have a heart. The days went by as the two pulled each other along, and soon it was the day of the marathon. The two were told by their teachers that they would have to start running at 5 a.m. the next morning and that it would be too late to go home and sleep at night. Mike came up with a great place that was close and had empty rooms, and that was his own house, but Day half-heartedly went along with it. Porche is 5 months pregnant. As a kid coming out of a single-parent home, Day knows that single moms have it tough. She plans to name the baby Me. Day also just realized that Mike often brings Last Twilight home. He reads it to himself at home only when it's smooth. He really did a lot for Day and planted jasmine in his yard. They can't feel it all, so it's only natural to have a heart for Mike. The next day was the marathon. The two arrive at the scene and Mike runs into Pi, who has come in from the wild to run. My sister's car will be foreclosed on next month, and Pi knows a car repair company that's hiring. He says he can't introduce Mike to him if he needs to. That was overheard by Day and the little tantrum came back. He thinks Mike is doing all this to make money. He starts throwing tantrums over the car and doesn't run well with Mike. Mike realized with hindsight that he was angry about that comment, so he decided he was going to beg for a relationship with him after the run to the finish line. But Day stopped at the last step and let go of the headband. They took the final step when Mike thought he was still going to reject himself. The two of them, with their mom's approval and Knight's acquiescence, the duo walked and played along the way to their teacher's wedding. At first Mom didn't agree, because Day suddenly had blackness in front of her eyes last time. After an examination, the doctor said the damage to his cornea was getting worse. Based on past cases, it's about 3 months away from total blindness. The doctor's advice is to do whatever you want to do. Mom was worried that something would happen to him if he went away and never agreed to going to his teacher's wedding. All Mike could think of doing was to beg his mom just before he can carry out his actions. Knight comes to tell the two that Mom has agreed, but only if Knight takes it out, and Day doesn't want to go as soon as he hears about it. After Mahek's persuasion, he reluctantly agrees. Teachers don't want any other gifts for their weddings, just their favorite books from their guests, so got to plan to give Last Twilight, which was recommended to him by his teacher and which he really liked. Mahek bought couple pendants for the two. Day has the letter D hanging from it in a little pendant of a badminton ball, and his own was the letter M, so that they could tell the two men's bags apart. When ready, the three set off. They almost got into another fight with Knight over whether to sit in the passenger or back seat. Halfway there again, because of Knight, Day was shown where the handicapped restroom was located. It makes Day think he's being sarcastic again, and gets up the urge to go home. Muck, helpless but not wanting to see Day upset, sneaks off to get the pair's luggage. He thought Knight didn't know, but he actually knew all about it. Knight also gives them all his cash to take away and tells Muck to contact him if he needs anything. The two of them rolled around in several cars, and finally arrived at the beach, very close to the location of the teacher's wedding. They couldn't see, but he could feel the calm of the sea and the position of the sun. He could feel Muck's feelings too. A lot of things don't require eyes to see, they require the heart to feel. Day follows Muck around. When they meet the party in the evening, Muck thinks of checking in first, but Day thinks of having fun. It turned out to be so much fun that the two frowsy and slept on the beach all night, lodging free. Luckily nothing of value was taken, just the books Day had prepared were missing. While Muck is getting anxious, Day says he was joking and that the book is actually still there. This blows up on Muck, who feels that Day's jokes are out of place and leaves in anger. Anyway, the two of them get even without any problems, and are still on their way when they meet an older man, who happens to be going near his teacher's wedding. The uncle kindly gave the two a ride. It was still early in the day when they got to the place, so Muck took Day to change out of his all-painted clothes. They were dressed in their ready clothes and both were very handsome. Muck promises never to let go of Day's hand in the future, and even if he wanted to let go, they wouldn't let him. They gave the book away, even though the book ended up being ripped off. But the protagonist already has a great future here in Day, just like himself, and Anne came to ask Day to dance. Day, who was once so afraid of being watched, jumped after his aunt even though he was driven to do so. When Muck invited him to join him, there was no hesitation in agreeing. He's been able to walk up to everyone and not be afraid of all the various looks he can see anymore. After the two finished dancing, a man called out to Day. He thought it was the father of the bride, but he turned out to be Day's dad, who he hadn't seen in a long time. I didn't think Day would see Dad at his teacher's wedding. Learned that it was Knight again who told him he couldn't see. Day lets Muck take himself away from the wedding venue. Day hates Knight not because of that time. He got in a car accident on the way home from picking someone up. That led to the damage to his cornea, causing the current situation. He knows it was just an accident, but rather a change in Knight's personality since he went blind. As far as Day was concerned, he was taking away everything that was his, so Day hasn't been kind to him. Dad says he's guilty and Day scoffs. And Day's dad, he divorced his mom for another woman. Mom had to take them to Bangkok to make ends meet. After that she wouldn't allow her dad to see them and threw away all his pictures. Day still asks Muck to take him to see his dad. He asked his dad how he knew Knight was guilty. Dad said Knight called Dad when Day was just having trouble seeing. Because he was so guilty, he changed his previous playboy personality. He's trying to make up for wanting to be what Day used to want him to be as a good brother. Even though he knew it wouldn't help, he kept being nice to Day in his own way. It's just that Day has been misunderstanding him. Dad also took the opportunity to express his guilt to Day about feeling sorry for his mom all the time. Day can't forgive for his mom, but Day still wants his dad around in his heart. After unraveling her misunderstandings about Knight and seeing her dad, whom she hadn't seen in a long time, Day was happy and blissful. Muck is also happy to see Day happy. For Day, Muck works hard to learn how to cook. Cooking at his teacher's house, he received praise from everyone. The teacher's friend even joked that Muck should work as a chef in his hotel. The teacher told them that Last Twilight mentioned that the cover of the book was taken here, but Muck had already bought a ticket to go back the next morning. It's a shame, but it will have to wait until next time. Muck knows Day and knows he must want to see it. He just held back from going back because he was going to be scolded by his mom if he didn't. But just when Day was feeling the happiest, his eyesight started to fail again. Day changed his mind about wanting to come back another time and wanted to go the next day. The teacher couple gave Last Twilight back to them as a companion gift for their wedding. They gave the two men directions to the general route. The teacher also made a point of telling them to go inside the old town when they pass by, because there are a lot of places there where the author of this book has traveled. The two did find many places in the urban area that were described in the book. Muck took a lot of pictures of Day. When they finally got to the mountains, they got lost. Passers-by told them to go the other way, but it was definitely too late for today. He then took them to a small hotel nearby, but the owner only took cash. But after hearing what happened today, he agreed to have the two stay, because the author of Last Twilight used to live here too. He was traveling around the world with his soon-to-be blind daughter when he passed by and snapped that cover. The two asked the owner what the novel ended up being, but he didn't say. Mike feels they've experienced a lot of firsts along the way, and that was the night day, and he experienced their first time together. The next day when they left, the owner gave them the last page of the novel autographed by the author. He was probably hoping for a good ending for the two of them as well. They took day up the mountain, and although the path was difficult, neither of them gave up. Midway through the night, Night calls and tells Day that his mom is coming back from a business trip tonight. He asks Mike to bring Day home, but Mike refuses. Day doesn't want his mom to blame him and wants to go back. But Mike knows his eyesight is getting worse and he wants to take this last chance. He wanted Day to feel it all, so he insisted on taking him up the mountain anyway. At the end of the novel, the protagonist is transformed into a stone statue with the last rays of twilight, looking at the horizon. She'll never be gone. Mike doesn't think this is going to end well. Day, however, argues that the protagonist sees what he most wants to see in his final moments. That's what's best for him. Like himself, he saw the view from here in his last moments of blindness, except he couldn't see Mike's face anymore. Mike resigned because Mom felt that he wasn't taking care of Day as he had agreed to do. After the doctor declares Day completely blind, Mom asks Mike what was the last thing Day saw. Mike didn't tell the truth, only that he saw a beautiful sunset. The next minute Mom quit him, but Mike already knew he would be sacked and he mentioned it himself. Mom told him to say goodbye to Day. Day senses he's going to go talk to his mom when he's about to leave and Mike stops it.
พี่ก็ทำใจไว้เขาด้วยตั้งแต่วันที่เราตัดสินใจจะไปกันนะ
Night doesn't think Mom did the right thing either. The point is that her doing so might make Day stay in his room again and not come out. But Mom only puts Day's safety first, to the surprise of both Mike and his mom. Day confesses the relationship between the two in front of his mom. But still, I couldn't get my mom back. After that she found a new caregiver for Day. But the results are all guessable. Probably find one and be driven away from the other. Mike redeems his sister's car and goes down to Day's house to call Day. The love that resembles Romeo and Juliet is, unsurprisingly, also heard by Mom. Day thinks her mom is stopping them from dating because Mike is a boy. But really, Mom knew when Day was into August. It's not so much her gender now as it is her feeling that Mike is incapable of taking care of Day. Mike, who has left her house, can't even get a proper job to stop the two from reconnecting. Mom confiscated Day's cell phone and even changed the wireless password. And Mike did get a job at every turn, just as his mom thought he would. As soon as people heard he had been in jail, they either didn't take it or kept their pay low. Porgy asks him to try out as a chef at the restaurant where he works, because after Day's osmosis, Mike is a good cook now. He doesn't want any other caregivers, and is being looked after by Night for the time being. He took the opportunity of getting Day his food to give Day a new cell phone. He also advised his mom not to watch Day so closely. Mom, on the other hand, blames Night for needing a caregiver because he couldn't take care of Day. Night was already guilty, but now he's even more guilty of not even going to work and taking care of Day. Day comes down to eat and Night won't let him eat what's already cold. Night gives him freshly warmed, lumpy noodles for himself. Day made up with Night. He calls Mike on the cell phone. Night gave him to write down the new number. Mike also tells Day about his job at the restaurant. He's going to work hard and get his mom to allow him to be with Day. On this day, Night takes Day for a review. Mike arrives just as Day is trying to find an excuse to eat at the restaurant where Mike works. Day still thinks it's almost too much of a fateful time to even meet like this. It was then poked and prodded by Night that it was actually Porgy who had an appointment with Night. Night gives the young couple a whole day to have a good date. He himself stays behind to take care of Porgy and teases Porgy to make him think he has a girlfriend. After she left and told others that Porgy was carrying her own child, Mike took Day to buy new books and took him to paint. On the way back, Mike wants to ask Day out on a date with himself on Christmas Day, because he'll be able to get his hands on the dishes soon. He wanted Day to have the Christmas dinner he had prepared for her. They really wanted to go too, and the two made a date. Only on Christmas Day, Mom pushed work and spent the holiday at home with her two sons. Because of Day's special needs, his mom has been taking care of him. This makes Night feel like an outsider and want to make excuses to leave. Only, Mom also made Night's favorite beef stew. Day remembers too, and neither of them have forgotten Night. The family had a happy dinner, and Mike couldn't wait for Day until the restaurant closed. He was on the verge of giving up when Day's call came, explaining the reason for the tardiness. He also lied to his mom about continuing the celebration with G. Went to Mike's restaurant by myself in a cab. Mike had already prepared dinner and pulled Day to sit down. Day also has a gift for Mike, a pair of insulated gloves, only for his mom to suddenly arrive. and Mike immediately explains that he's the one who made Day come out. But instead of pursuing the matter, Mom told them the good news. They waited until he had donor corneas and had surgery. Mom also explains to Mike that she doesn't disagree with them being together. Rather, she wanted Day to find someone who could take good care of him. He was also allowed to stay with Day while he had his gauze removed, and everything went in a good direction. Everyone is also looking forward to Day seeing the light again. Day also jokes that he has seen many similar movies and is afraid that Mike will disappear after his recovery. Mike certainly doesn't do that boring, time-wasting thing. Just as everyone was laughing and joking, a bad news came back. Day with the gauze removed remains invisible. The doctor said it was because of an eye infection and the body was rejecting it. All hope was dashed in an instant, and Day's future was dark again. Neither one can afford such a fall. Only this time, instead of doing what he did the first time, Day chose to keep all the pain inside. Porche's baby was born, a little girl. She named the baby Me, the same name as last Twilight's protagonist. With all this pressure, the only thing that allowed them to breathe a little was when Mom accepted Mike. She not only allowed him to eat at home. Hearing Day tell Mike about his private recipe, she wasn't really angry, but jokingly asked him not to trash his sign. Mike has lived up to his name and has become the restaurant's sous chef. He also had an opportunity to work outside the home, and Day begged his mom to want to come along. After all that, how could Mom say no again? Mike, on the other hand, thinks it's a test from his mom and goes out of his way to ask Knight for advice on what he needs to watch out for. He couldn't understand what Knight was saying though. What is the difference between an escort and a boyfriend? What's to look out for is also different. All he knew was that he was moving in a better direction now. He's struggling to take better care of Day. Day goes to work with Mike at the foreign office. During the day, Mike works at the hotel, and Day watches TV in the dormitory. In the evening, Mike comes home and sometimes brings Day a small dessert. For Mike, it's fulfilling at work, but it can also be accompanied by worries about Day. Whenever he hears the slightest breeze, he subconsciously guesses if something has happened to Day. So, when the hotelier has a great opportunity for him, when he asked Mike to work as a chef in a hotel abroad, he refused, but he kept it from Day. He didn't want to be estranged. He didn't want to not be there for Day when something happened to him. That feeling of powerlessness had been felt by him when his sister died. If he had answered his sister's call before the fight, she might not have died. Mike has always been regretful and remorseful. He couldn't undo the remedy, but now he didn't want to face that kind of thing again. So even if he gives up his job, he has no regrets. Being around Day, he also manages to take good care of him. Mom's line finally makes sense now, though she's concerned that Mike is becoming increasingly unable to let go of Day as his identity shifts. This kind of caring is completely different from the caring you get when you're an escort. That's why I think that Mom is really a great person. He's not only thinking about Day, he's also thinking about Mike. She was worried that he wouldn't be able to work and live well because of it. After Day finds out that Mike is hiding something from him, she also doesn't stop Day, but chooses to silently comfort Day after he insists on breaking up with Mike. She can outright support Day either. After all, she doesn't want to see Mike upset. But the fact that my son is doing this proves that he's really growing up. Day's grown up and isn't that smart kid anymore. He's grown up to the point where he'll trick Mike into letting him have a good life with well-intentioned lies. He doesn't want to be the Day that drags Mike down anymore. Day finished his studies and opened a bookstore 3 years after Mike left. Except for being blind, he's been exactly like a normal person. Mike's 3 years are not depicted in the show, and it's hard to imagine how he got through them. When Porche and Knight are getting married after 3 years, Mike takes a leave of absence to return home. He and Day met on the escalator. They couldn't see, but he could smell Mike's perfume. But he thought it was an illusion. The director himself comes to help him. After getting off the elevator and is cut off by Mike, he helped Day walk to the hotel door. All the way there, Day thought the person holding him up looked like Mike, but he was afraid to admit it, and Mike kept quiet. It wasn't until he got in the car that he finally said something. That's when Day recognizes him as Mike, but Mike has already slammed the car door shut. Porche and Knight tell Mike that Day has opened a bookstore. Mike asks a bunch of questions anxiously while saying he's just asking casually. Porche and Knight have questioning looks on their faces. Sure enough, the next moment, Mike went to Day's bookstore. Day recognizes Mike when he smells something that belongs to him. But even after coming back, Mike is at all times proving to Day that she still likes him. He expresses that he still wants to get back together with him, but Day always refuses. Until Mike returns, Day worries that he's got someone new. After he returns, he then feels that Mike will eventually return to thus. So no matter how much Mike expresses his love, he is rejecting it. When Mom is not home, Mike cooks good food for them. He also made Day's favorite food, explaining that he made it smooth. Both Porche and I know it by heart. Mike came to their wedding this time to get his visa on the way, and he has to go back. He booked a ticket for the night the two were married. Day's suit is done. Porche asks him to pick up his gown with his best man, who is Mike. While trying on clothes, Meg takes the opportunity to eat Dave's tofu. Poor Jay and Knight's wedding went on as planned and Mom gave her blessings. Ben also decides to be a single mom, but she then meets Knight, who has refused. But Knight asks her to give another chance, not to him, but to poor Jay himself. Meg was hoping for a second chance, too, but they held out. He was afraid of the uncertainty of the future, that they would have a bad time. Many things, but the future is unknown to all. Even for a visible person, all of these problems exist. Life will not treat you leniently just because of your suffering. Only by yourself can you live your life well. After Mom's enlightenment, Dave finally decides to go after her husband. The bride and groom couldn't even change out of their dresses to accompany him. Poor Jay, in order to get the staff to help, she also made up a story about his husband stealing the gift money and running off to a foreign country with his mistress. She still hasn't recovered though. Mike didn't even get on the plane. He's still waiting for Day at the hotel. He's already decided to stay. The two made up again. Poor Jay and Knight are relieved. To make them even happier, Mom got the news from the hospital. The corneas they've been waiting for so long are available again. Another 3 years later, Day's eyesight was restored and Mick was working as a chef in the country. Mi grows up and poor Jay is pregnant again. The end of the story. Their days are getting better and better, with challenges and happiness. Thanks for the like and support, and we won't see you in the next installment.